One of the things that we have to think about these days is how past decisions impact who we are today. Oh, good. We're live on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. Welcome to the Lurie Daniel Favor Show on Urban View, channel 126. This is the YouTube experience. You all get a chance to sneak in and listen to a little bit of what we do here in Urban View every single day. But one of the things that we often have to ask ourselves is how did past decisions impact where we are today? And we have talked a lot on this show about the way in which people have had to fa and fo. They flung around, and now a lot of them are finding out. And what we're realizing is that the find out is kind of difficult for a lot of people. Usually when we have this conversation, it's the find out for others. Right, because most of us, the 92%, 78%, we did what we were supposed to do. We showed up the way we were supposed to show up. And we will often pride ourselves on that very thing. And we're excited about that because it also gives us a way of pointing the finger at other people and saying, look at y'all. Y'all could have did this. You could have had better, but you didn't because you're racist and you didn't like the black lady and you said she cackled too loud and you took snippets of her videos and made 3-second snippets out of full 90-second things and made entire points about it. Y'all had a lot to say. Not y'all, your cousins. But today we are reminded in today's edition of Black News that your black ass can definitely use. We have a reminder that it's not just other people who have some reflection and introspection that they need to engage in. I want you all to take a listen, and YouTube, I'm going to share this on video so you all will get a chance to see it. I want you all to take a listen to this clip. This is Roland Martin, who was at the Alpha Phi Alpha convention that took place, or it might still be taking place. I'm not sure, but it was at least taking place a few days ago. And that's where this video came from. I want you all to listen to this clip. This is Roland Martin talking about black people who did not come out to vote. The percentages of black people that did not come out to vote, not those of us who did. We already know we can pat ourselves on the back and sit on top of that building in the city surrounded by flames, sipping tea, even though the flames are approaching the building. But I want you all to take a listen to what we learned later about the actual numbers and when it came to voter turnout. Let's take a listen.
I was Bishop Barber and I were talking. We were texting today.
Do you want your mic
and again, this is the data he presented yesterday. I'm about to mess y'all up. In Georgia, 1,016,000 black people in Georgia did not vote. Trump won by 115,000 votes. In North Carolina, 661,000 black people did not vote. Trump won by 183,000.
Our silence is literally killing us. Yes.
Yeah.
Our silence is literally killing us.
661,000 in North Carolina. Yeah. 1,016,000 in Georgia did not vote. Overall, 90 million people didn't vote. 40% of black voters nationwide did not vote. Even with a black woman on the ticket. 70% of white evangelicals voted for Trump. And Mike Johnson is the Speaker of the House, and he's Speaker of the House by 7,000 votes.
My God.
They won the seats that gave them the House. They won those seats by 7,000 votes. That's why every little, that 20 here and 30 here, that's the election.
So that was the voice of Roland Martin speaking at the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated convention. We got shout out to the men of Phi Beta Sigma. We have some news about you all as well. But I bring that conversation to your resonance, to your memory, to your recollection, because what we now have to do is talk about what that means. And that's why I needed to set that up, because a lot of times when we're talking about the FAFO, we forget that we also fucked around. A lot of us did. We don't like to talk about it as much because we didn't fuck around as much as everybody else did. But boy, lordy, how did we indeed fuck around? As you heard there, over 1 million black Georgia voters stayed home and did not vote. Over 600,000 black North Carolinian voters stayed home. Donald Trump won North Carolina by, as you heard there, more than 83,000 votes, and he won Georgia by just around 100,000 votes. So within our capacity to act, as it pertains to the few inflection points that we have to actually act, there were many of us who came out and showed up and did what was necessary, but at 40% of black registered voters did not vote. And why am I mentioning this? Not to rub our nose in it and not to be like, dang, we played our own selves. Although we did. Oh boy, did we play ourselves. We did indeed play ourselves. But because of the stories that we're going to be talking about today, didn't come from nowhere. Let's start with our first one. Shout out to Capital B News, one of my favorite media outlets. You all should be supporting Capital B like black, the capital B in black news.org. And one of the things that they talked about, Aaliyah Wright, who we have had on this show multiple times, a phenomenal reporter doing God's work, reporting on what's really happening in black communities for Capital B News. In an article entitled, "The USDA Ends Key Support for Black Farmers Amid Trump's Anti-DEI Orders." We're going to start there because when we're talking about food supply and food chain, one of the things we all recognize is that we need to be growing our own food. It just so happens that black farmers have been known that, and now black farmers are getting their asses handed to them because how many people? 40% of us did not come out to vote, and more of us could have, but we didn't for a whole variety of reasons. Now, according to the article, the 84-year-old Lloyd Wright, who was one of the black farmers featured in the story, absolutely not shocked that the Department of Agriculture last week made a decision to reverse a 35-year-old policy that was designed to help black farmers navigate out of the racism that the USDA had been promulgating for decades. We have had the president of the National Black Farmers Association on this show multiple times, Dr. John Boyd Jr. Shout out to him and the amazing work of the National Black Farmers Association. And one of the things they talk about is that when he would submit an application, or any of the black farmers that he would represent submitted an application for loan funds to the United States Department of Agriculture, which most farmers have to do, it would take over a year for black farmers to get their loan applications evaluated. Now, in that year, you done missed your planting time, your harvest time, your fertilizing time. You done missed the whole thing in just the year that it took for them to review your application. Maybe say yes, most likely say no, whereas the white boy farmers were able to get their applications reviewed and approved or denied within a month. He talked about, Dr. John Boyd Jr., when he came on my show, he talked about the fact that when he showed up with his application to find out what was the status of the application, they ripped his application up, slapped or spat in his face, and basically sent him on his little N-word way. And that was how the USDA had typically operated for decades. At the beginning of the 1900s, which feels really weird to say because I was technically born in the 1900s, but at the beginning of the 1900s, black farmers held almost 15% of the arable land in this country. And through a process of rampant, proactively pro-white nationalist anti-black discrimination, had that land stolen from them and had lost the land due to an inability to get access to the same financial resources that white boy farmers were able to get. Under President Joseph Robinette Biden and Vice President Kamala Devi Harris, they had, after President Barack Obama put into place the foundation for being able to get the Pigsford suit settled and getting some funds out to those communities who needed it, who had been wrongfully discriminated against. And we're not going to do the whole Pigsford conversation. I did that years ago. You can go back in the archives and pull it up. But basically, President Biden and Vice President Harris continued that effort after it had been interrupted by Donald Trump and attempted to include within the American Rescue Plan, or I'm sorry, the Inflation Reduction Act, that pocket of $5 billion that was going to go, yes, to black farmers and also to other farmers of color who had suffered similar but not quite the same sorts of discrimination. What did the white boy farmers do? They did what white boy farmers who are willing to take benefits even though black people are being denied that always do. They went to court and they filed lawsuits, and in those lawsuits they basically said there's money going to the blacks and we can't have none, and that's not fair. And they ignored the fact that the reason there was money going to the blacks and the other non-white farmers was because for decades the white boy farmers have been the only ones getting all the money. That's how racism works. The white folks who benefit from racism get all the things, and then you try to create a program to ameliorate that pain and to make sure that the black people and other non-white people get the things, and the white people say, well, that's racist because you took it from us and we can't have access to the thing that you were giving to them. Because for the racist, only their needs matter. According to the report last week, the agency announced that it is going to, quote, eliminate the term socially disadvantaged, which is a term that describes farmers or ranchers who had been subjected to, quote, racial, ethnic, or gender discrimination. That obviously includes Black, Hispanic, Native American, and Asian farm groups. According to the report, according to Mr. Lloyd Wright, this 84-year-old farmer who's quoted in the report, the government is going to take back the money. The little bit we were getting and some of the outreach money will be crawled back because they're eliminating socially disadvantaged and anything else dealing with DEI. Because apparently providing equitable access to farm-based resources that black farmers needed and from which they were wrongfully excluded because of said pro-white racism is now considered no longer a social disadvantage. The Department of Agriculture had adopted the socially disadvantaged framework back in the 1990 Farm Bill, basically to deliver resources to minority farmers through a variety of programs, including one called the 2501 program, which basically required the USDA to not just provide loan applications and resources equitably, but to also engage in outreach and technical assistance. Because for decades, the USDA had ignored the plight of black farmers, and so they needed to also let them know, hey, it's a new USDA, it's sort of, kind of, but not really. You should come and you should apply. Here's some technical assistance we can provide for you. Now they're cutting all of that. They're cutting the use of the term entirely. They're no longer going to consider the use of race or sex-based criteria. And essentially, they decided that they're done. They're over it because they have, quote, sufficiently addressed its racism of discrimination through litigation that has resulted in settlements, release, and reforms. Yes, my friends, the white nationalist government has said that they are no longer going to be providing programs for the socially disadvantaged because they have done enough to address their white nationalism. Thank you very much. The USDA issued a statement that said Secretary Brooke Rollins, the same Secretary Brooke Rollins who last week we heard in a clip basically saying that they were not going to have any amnesty programs for migrant workers. They were going to mass deport them, and instead the Medicaid recipients who are able-bodied workers, basically that means the white boys and the white girls on USDA, or I'm sorry, on Medicaid assistance, are going to now have to be the able-bodied workers working out in them fields. But we know them white folks ain't really going to be out in them fields because we know historically they don't really do that so well. So what's going to end up happening is they're going to expand the criminal legal system, which they're already doing. That's later in more news you can use so that they can arrest more people. And as they arrest more people, you're convicting more people of crimes. And once you've been convicted more people of crimes, and again, can basically become slave labor because that's what the 13th Amendment literally allows. Now, you've got the Democrats who are doing everything they can, including calling on the name of Black Jesus, to push back on this. United States Representative Shontel Brown out of the great state of Ohio. I believe we've had Shontel Brown on this show before. She's kind of dope. She said basically this is President Donald Trump's resegregation agenda. And that is exactly what this is, folks. This is a resegregation agenda. She says it's no secret that the department has a long history of locking out and leaving behind Black, brown, and indigenous farmers. Now, this administration, she says, is taking a deliberate and disgraceful step backward on the path to attempt to right the historic wrongs. The, quote, socially disadvantaged designation was a long overdue recognition of the barriers to land, credit, and opportunity that farmers of color have had for generations. And it's not just that the black community in the farming space is going to be negatively impacted by this news. There's other news that your black ass can use that is also going to be a real harm for a lot of us, and that's for any of us who care about the old people in our lives. Now, I have senior citizens in my family. I'm sure you have senior citizens in your family. We got senior citizens that live in our household. So this is something that's very, very personal to me because do you guys remember when they passed that big bitch ass bill into law, the same law that was basically going to be cutting SNAP and food support services and social safety net services and housing programs and student loan programs and the Department of Education and SNAP programs and Meals on Wheels programs and all these other programs? Also in that legislation was a requirement that you would work, right? Those able-bodied workers, that you would work and that you would be able to earn part of your living. If you couldn't work at a job, you was going to volunteer up to 80 hours a week. Now, I don't know what your 75-year-old B-Maw is going to look like trying to volunteer down at the local Piggly Wiggly. But she better figure it out because, and she better figure it out on her own because the programs that the Department of Labor used to provide for senior citizens to help train them to reenter work or to take their decades of experience as it pertains to all the years of accomplishment that they have achieved out in the work world over the course of their adult lives and to funnel that into volunteer opportunities that would count for the type of things that would count for you to get your Medicaid and SNAP benefits. Well, there was an entire U.S. Department of Labor program that was designed to train those senior citizens, but it has quietly been ended because the Trump administration thinks it is wasteful for your Meemaw and your Pap to actually have things like community centers. And yes, they include that as well. According to Bloomberg, the U.S. Department of Labor has ended or is ending its only nationwide job training program for low-income seniors, just as tens of thousands must meet new work requirements to tap into Medicaid and food assistance. So yes, friends, now that we have these new work requirements for you to be able to qualify for Medicaid or food assistance, they're also cutting the programs that are going to prepare you to volunteer or to get the work hours so that you qualify for that food aid or Medicaid assistance. Remember when this was what was done with Job Corps? Remember when this happened to Job Corps and a whole lot of the racist whites said, well, these little N-words, they should just go get a job and figure it out. You don't need no support to figure out how to get a GE or a D. Remember that? And remember how when we talked about Job Corps, the racist whites were very much laughing and kiki and ha-ha. And well, I hope you can kiki and ha-ha as you figure out to do with your Mimi and your pop-pop because they are going to need a job, because they're not going to get access to their food stamps or their Medicaid. Now, according to the report, national organizations that were funded by the Department of Labor's Senior Community Service Employment Program, the so-called SCSEP, which includes notoriously evil, left-leaning, woke DEI groups like the Goodwill, or the National Council on Aging, God forbid the Easter Seals. These groups, they had to basically stop giving out funding after June 30th of this year. Why? Because they have been not receiving, or they have not received, the more than $300 million that were set aside for national grant recipients. And that was supposed to have taken place back in May. And so now programs that are designed to assist Americans who are aged 55 years and older to find work are also being scaled back. They're being paused because ain't no cash available. Ain't no money. Because Donald Trump thinks your Mima and your Pap are wasteful. He thinks they should be doged. According to the report, cutting the program, which, quote, connects out-of-work seniors to community service work at schools, hospitals, and other facilities, as well as other resources to help them find jobs, will largely push them into unemployment. If only they were unemployed in a blue state, because being unemployed in a red state, as we all learned during COVID, is quite politically tricky. You might not even have a sufficient unemployment insurance agency in a red state. You might have a limitation on the amount of benefits you can receive. You might want to move your Meemaw and your Pap to a blue state really quickly before these regulations go into place, because chances are they're going to be sleeping on your couch, bringing a new generation to the phenomenon known as surf couching or couch surfing, whatever the hell you want to call it. The point is they're going to be living with you because they can't afford to live on their own anymore. The impact, according to the report, could be particularly dire for the thousands of participants who will have to now find work or volunteer hours just to keep their public health insurance coverage and food assistance, thanks to that big bitch-ass bill that has now been signed into law. According to Mara Porcelli, who's the senior director of the programs administered by the National Council of Aging, many of these SCSEP-supported job seekers receive SNAP and Medicaid benefits and may be at risk if they are unable to secure other employment or other service opportunities. Now, the reason this is black news that you can use is because there's a whole lot of us that got a whole lot of black people that's on a whole lot of these programs that are going to find themselves no longer with access to the benefits of these programs. And so what do we have to do? Think about what community looks like and how community is going to be able to support these people. According to the White House budget plan for 2026, so reports Bloomberg, they have proposed eliminating the $405 million per year senior community service program because it's an earmark to, quote, leftist DEI promoting entities like the National Urban League, the Center for Workforce Inclusion, and the Easter Seals. So bingo night at the local senior center is probably finna be canceled because it's woke. That's what they said. They're not going to have no more, ain't no going to be no more bid whiz tournaments at the local, outposts of the senior center. Ain't going to be no more, line dancing for the seniors with age-friendly. Ain't going to be no more age-friendly program because your Meemaw and your Pap cost too much money. Don't you know billionaires need a tax break? What is wrong with you? Like, why are you even demanding that the government provide services just because you pay taxes? You pay taxes? Taxes? Who gives a good goddamn? Not the wealthy. Not the wealthy. And so good luck figuring out how to bring bingo night to your local house or maybe in front of your trailer park. You can have a trailer park center right there in the middle of the grass yard because you ain't going to have a cement yard or a brick yard or a wood yard to play in anymore because seniors cost too much money and they're wasteful. They're woke DEI. This is a good point to remind you all, however, that being a senior citizen is actually something that qualifies you as a diverse member of the population. You know how we have curb cutouts so that wheelchairs for people who are physically disabled or who need walkers because they're elderly and or otherwise physically disabled, those curb cutouts, that's woke DEI. The fact that we can talk to text, that's woke DEI. The fact that you have cell phones that with Siri and navigation, that's all woke DEI. So get rid of all of it because apparently nobody needs any of it. Because unless white people can benefit from it, it's all a waste. According to the report, 3 organizations, National Urban League, Center for Workforce Inclusion, and the Easter Seals, who are now considered the woke DEI people of the senior citizen population, they received a combined total of $83.2 million in 2023. Not because they wanted to refund their offices, but because that money was then turned into programs that was going to benefit seniors. But not to leave anybody out, the Trump administration has something for everybody. And so an additional black news news your black ass can use, you should also know that for all the young people, love them. God love them. I live with some of them. They're amazing human beings. And they're also learning, like the rest of us, that elections have consequences. Do you have any young people in your household who said things to you like, the parties are all the same? Or said things like, that lady don't even really like black people. She ain't even really black. I heard she wasn't even ADOS. In fact, do she even have any black family? Is she even black American? She laughed too loud. I don't even like how she laughed. And in fact, I don't think she really liked black people anyway. Why? Because I saw it on a YouTube video. Y'all remember? Y'all got any young people like that, or young people who said elections don't matter, my vote don't matter, these things, y'all just doing that Democratic shield? Did you have any young people? Because I got some in my life. And some of these people go to college. Some of the people in my life play sports. And some of the people in my life who made them comments thought that it was going to have NIL just to help them navigate all the things and make all the money that they could possibly make and do all the things that they could possibly do in order to make as much money as possible. And they didn't need to be politically engaged. And athletes don't need to have a political voice, because athletes just care. They don't care about, Republicans buy tennis shoes too. Isn't that what Michael Jordan said? They don't have a political opinion. They're just doing the work. They're just running the ball, just playing catch or whatever the hell it is that people do in sports. I'm not a sports person, so I don't know the things that you're supposed to say when people do sports. Run, N-word, run. Catch, N-word, catch. That's sort of the way that white people tend to think about it when they're the racist whites, not the righteous whites. But the reason I'm mentioning this is because Donald J. Trump has decided to enter the world of collegiate athletics. And he's decided to enter it by issuing an executive order that is designed to basically establish standards, national standards for name, image, and likeness initiatives, according to CBS News. Within the past week, members of the U.S. House of Representatives introduced an amended bill called the SCORE Act. Now, SCORE stands for Student Compensation and Opportunity Through Rights and Endorsements, aiming to, quote, protect the name, image, and likeness rights of student athletes to promote fair compensation with respect to intercollegiate athletics and for other purposes. What this basically means is wealthy owners in the athletic field did not like the fact that a whole lot of you black athletic people had so much athleticism that you were able to command prices and salaries that, quite frankly, rivaled what a lot of these owners were making or willing to pay. And they basically want to sign this executive order into law to stop you from being able to negotiate on the free market. But it's fine, because athletes aren't supposed to have political opinions anyway. I mean, it's totally fine. You guys don't care, because you're not supposed to vote anyway, right? You're just supposed to play ball. You're just supposed to shut up and dribble. Isn't that what that white woman said that Barack Obama should do? Just shut up and dribble. And he ain't even. This is where they're going. So to be clear, not only have they decided that it's too much to support the black farmers, and they're not doing that anymore. They've decided that it's too much to support old people, which includes a whole lot of black old people, so they're not going to do that anymore. It's too much to allow young black people, and all athletes to be sure, but it's the black ones. It's too much to allow them to be able to determine what their future looks like, and by being able to use the free market principles of negotiations and bargaining. Remember, it's supposed to be free market capitalism. Y'all love capitalism until it's black people doing for themselves. And so this is where we're at now. But it's fine. It's fine because, people aren't even sure what's going to happen. It is, interesting that some coaches and owners who have recently retired are planning to come back all of a sudden. That's weird, I think. And I don't even watch sports. And I think that's weird. I mean, I listen to the sports and my husband's watching it, and he'll break down for me the racial and sociological and psychological and economic implications of whatever is happening on the field. But I even know that it's weird to have owners and coaches leaving the game and then coming back because they decided they want to participate. I don't know. I just think it's weird. Also in news that you should use and that you need to know, prices are going up. I know we said this was going to happen, and a lot of people said it was never going to happen, but it is officially happening. We are now seeing that we're in a moment right now where prices everywhere, including Walmart, are now increasing to the tune of upwards of 50%. Not in every category, but in enough categories that people need to be really clear about where your money is going and how much you need to spend and not spend on a whole host of things, because we are now in a point where the reports are that Walmart products, including baby food and formula and clothing items and items you're going to need for your grill, household items, all the things basically made in China. All the things made in China are now going up to the tune of, as I mentioned, upwards of 50% increase in prices. And that apparently is supposed to continue even going into getting close to the school year. And I saw that somebody had noted, wait a minute, you mean to tell me we actually still got to go school clothes shopping without Target? Yes, we are going school clothes shopping without Target, even though Target is doing everything they can, including calling on people like Kai Sanat. I hope I pronounced that little boy's name right. I know my children told me don't come for the young people because the young people have no chill. And that's true. But there's one of them, Kai Sanat, who's doing very well for himself in a whole host of areas, including getting a new deal with Target. I just think there's got to be some loyalty somewhere, even if it's not among racial lines. But according to Walmart, or according to CNBC rather, prices on items like baby gear and home goods climbed at Walmart in recent weeks, while the cost of other prices still stayed largely the same. So we're seeing some peaks in some trends and some not so peaks in others. But basically, if you have a child, if you got anything that you need for your household, including furniture, luggage, cookware, anything like that, you might be paying upwards of 50% more than what you were paying before. And those prices are expected to continue. And we're going to get into what some of those price analyses are going to look like on the other side of the commercial break. Whew. Okay, I think that was a lot. I think I've covered enough for now. We have about 3 minutes left in this segment. It's getting hot, and I'm feeling like a perimenopausal pre-hot flash coming on. So I'm going to take a sip of water. But I just think these are things that we should be aware of, things that we need to know. And all of this just happened over the weekend. There's more. We're going to get into it on the other side with the amazing folks at Urban View. But we need to be aware right now that things are happening, things are moving, and then we have to ask ourselves, how are we preparing? What are you doing to make sure that the senior citizens in your community have access to the resources that they need, particularly because the ways in which the resources that they need usually came to them are being cut off? How are you preparing for that? How are you preparing for the young people in your life who are also now, I mentioned the athletics. I forgot all the other college students who, as I briefly mentioned last week and we'll delve more into this week, are no longer going to have access to financial aid programs. We're seeing Pell Grants being rescinded. We're seeing financial aid offers being pulled. People who thought they had permanent financial aid offers now realizing there's no such thing as a permanent aid office. I've seen a whole host of videos of young black children who thought they were going to HBCUs and thought they had financial aid packages, now having to go to other schools and institutions because that financial aid program got cut or got halved or got rescinded fully, and they don't have any other options except to go to the lesser expensive state school, and usually the lesser qualified state school, because that's what happens when your federal government makes moves like the federal government has made. So we're going to pause there for now. YouTube, I appreciate y'all. Hope you got a lot out of this conversation. Oh, shout out to TMFJ. I always do this thing where I forget actually, YouTube, hold on. I'm not going to hang up with y'all just yet because there's this thing I'm going to do on a commercial break. Don't tell the people at Urban View. I'm going to just do this with y'all because I realized that I could have did this last week when I cut myself off from finishing a point too soon because we were going to commercial break. I was like, well, wait, there's something I can do about that. So y'all just hang on a minute, YouTube. Urban View. We are going to go into commercial break in just a moment. But when we do, I want you to give me a call. 866-801-8255. 866-801-TALK is the number. We got stuff to figure out.
1 minute.
We got stuff to figure out. We got me, mom, Pat. I don't even like calling them that because that's not how I necessarily call the old people in my household. But we got me, mom, Pat under attack. We got the athletes under attack. We got the students under attack. We got the farmers under attack. Hell, it's almost as if we got to solve these problems on our own. Oh my God, can you imagine? It's almost as if nobody is coming to save us and we're going to have to figure it out on our own. Can you imagine? It's almost as if we probably could figure out, if we tried hard enough, how to solve these problems for ourselves better than anybody else could. We could probably figure those things out. Maybe not. Oh, and YouTube, I'm sorry. I was just notified I actually do have to cut off with you. So I'm sorry. I thought I was going to stick around to a commercial break, but we do have to go to commercial break right now. 866-801-8255, 866-801-TALK is the number. YouTube, love y'all. Got to go. Urban View, child, what us going to do? Well,